This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles, on the Rockstar Radio Network. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money, and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author You and The Book Shepherd on the Rockstar Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, it's an amazing summer day. I guess we're still in the first day of summer because the solstice was yesterday on the 20th. That supposedly started late in the afternoon, and I love summertime so much. So it makes me feel happy. And it's not that I don't mind wintertime, I just don't like ice. Well, here's what I thought we would do today, and looking at some of the things of what's going on, and how about money, and does money talk to you? Because one of the problems with so many authors today is they get stuck in this whole thing of should they publish? How can they publish inexpensively? Is it worth the investment? And how much is this thing really going to cost me? So I think that what I'd like to focus on today is just money. And it talks, and I think it's imperative for any author to really think about, are they listening in the process? Are they really looking at what's the full cost? So let's get into that. And if you have questions, I'm going to tell you to call me. Our open line is 866-404-6519. It's 866-404-6519, and I am going to just go ahead and handle the whole show, and we'll keep it open if you do have questions. Otherwise, we'll move along. I know what people have questions that I ask all the time as the head of Author You. The AuthorU.org, the membership organization with members that are all over the world, that they're constant questions that come across, although once in a while I get surprised with one I haven't heard before, or sometimes I have a client come in the door that I haven't heard this story before, which happened just last week with a woman who's actually, her mother did such horrendous things. All I could do was sit and listen with my mouth open, and then I politely closed it because it is shocking. There is no question. This is a movie that comes along, and it will be amazing when it will happen. So let's talk about this thing. And when you think about the awards and that come along, and which awards do you go into as an author, because that is part of the money talking, the money marketing side of it. Let's really think about the excitement and bringing it into play and what the real costs are in developing this. And there are all kinds of costs. There are real hard knuckle where you're going to be writing a check or using your credit card or paying with cash or however you're going to do it. And there are your energy costs. That's your time and your commitment and those things that come along. And then there are costs called stress costs. And it's very important to be very focused on costs, because it all comes into play. And even if you have deep pockets, even if you have money that you don't care, it's not imperative to you to sell your book, even if that's where you come from, you still have costs. And those revenues have to come somewhere. And if you're just going to create a book to put a cover on your wall, well, I guess you can do that. If you're going to create a book that you want to give away to gazillions of people, hey, I'll cheer all the way down the aisle for you, and I'll want a copy too. But there's still costs related to that. And so that means that if you can fund it yourself and be a philosopher, that's great, and take care of it. Or if you want to come out and have revenues that at least see those those charitable, those contribution efforts, that's also a smart thing to do. And I think what the bottom line is, what I'm getting to here, is that no matter what, publishing, authoring is a business. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a business. It has outlays and outgoes, and it should have revenues. And ideally, the revenues that come in should at least match what the outlays are. I can't pay you for the time and your stress, but for monies that you're paying for editing, for design, for illustrations, for, you may have to be paying for some kind of a forward sometimes. People say, yeah, I'll do a forward, but this is what my cost is, especially if you're going down the celebrity line. All that will happen through you. So let's just say that we want to talk about money, and let's start with crunching our numbers. So books have a price. Ebooks have a price. Audiobooks have a price. Video books have a price. There's a price to everything. So what is your price? And that's one of the questions that very typically comes up. What do I charge for my book? And the answer is, you know what? It depends. It depends. And that the depends is going to be a factor of what's the ongoing price within your genre. So how do you figure that out? Well, I would take a quick trip either to my favorite bookstore, and I am a huge believer in supporting the bookstores. I live in Colorado. One of the best independent bookstores in the country is a place called the Tattered Cover. And when I can go down there and just play, and I'm talking it's play for me, to just go through and just taste literally the environment. I love it. And just sitting down in one of those old comfy chairs and just maybe just picking a book and going through it, or picking up one of the new coffee table books and just yummy and salivating over the pictures. I'll do it if I'm going down and looking for a new book. I was after a book for branding, and I went down to pick it up the other day. That we always plan on spending a couple of hours. Well, these couple of hours is you're going to be looking over all the books for a couple of things. In your area. One is you're going to pay attention to what the ongoing price is, and seeing is, because they do start falling in the norm. Look at the difference between a hard book versus a soft cover book. And the reality is, the stats just came out from the American Publishers Association that for the first time, ebooks, certainly, and softbacks have been doing it for a long time, outsold hardbacks. The hardback sales are declining, and unless there is a really clear reason for you to be doing a hardback book, it's probably best to step away from that. All right? So with that, I would just go on and further say that we would be looking at what that genre is. Now, the other place, if you don't have a bookstore close to you, or you're going to tap into your computer, the place you go to is either Amazon.com or BN.com. And start checking out the same thing. Look up the genre and see what the ongoing prices are. And you will notice that Amazon and Barnes & Noble do discount. You cannot control it. Don't try to do it. And don't rack your brain over that. And I'll come back and talk about that before we leave this session. But it's important to really look at that. What's the ongoing price? Now, if you're saying, you know what? I'm not going to sell it in a bookstore. I don't care what a retail price is, because I have a direct sales platform. I'm going to be selling it either in my speaking engagements. I'm going to be selling it exclusively on my website. I'm going to be going around to the craft fairs. I have one of my clients I worked with has a fabulous book called Exploring Colorado Wineries, and the author is Paula Mitchell. She just sells it through her website, exploringcoloradowineries.com. If you're going to come to Colorado, and if you like vino, and if you want to do a great, fun, tourist-related gig, here's what you can do. You can explore Colorado wineries. Now, in my discussion with her today was, Paula, you also need to be online. because sometimes people are not going to remember, I need to put exploring in front of Colorado wineries. They may not remember your website. They just may remember wineries, and then they're going to start back and track, oh yeah, Colorado. So you've got to make it easy. And Amazon and Barnes & Noble make it easy for you. They're that's the cyber sales in the sky. And that's what you want to make sure that you're there. So Paula assured me that she would be up shortly on Amazon and Barnes & Noble so other people can sign it, because she just had a wonderful feature on the NBC affiliate, television affiliate here in Colorado, a great feature with a cover talking about her book, pitching it for tourism, and it never said to go to her website. So, mistake made. Now, in looking at these costs, let's say that you come up with $25. I can sell my book for $25, or I could sell it for $15. And I'm going to give you some ranges as we go through on that and let you know that. If you sold your book for $25 with a traditional, let's say a traditional was a New York type of house or any publishing house who has contracted with you, and they are going to be taking over designing the cover, and they're going to do the back cover, and they're going to do the layout, and they're going to do maybe another run of editing. Basically, they're going to publish your book, but you're not paying them up front to do it. That would be called pay to publish. All right, this is a traditional type of publishing arrangement. If you were to sell the book, in the old days, your royalties would be roughly for the first 5,000 copies, $2.50 a book. And that was on the full retail, but most contracts now are net. So if you want to know what net is, it's roughly 45% of the retail price. So it's going to be a little bit less than half of that. Doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of money. You're talking about around $1.40 a book. It's not, not even $1.40. You're talking about $1.20 a book. It's not a lot of money. You got to sell a lot of books. So people look for other options on which way to go. But the first thing is to understand what's going to be my revenues coming in and how many books will I average sell. And I will tell you, the average New York book sells less than 1,000 copies. It's not a lot of money. You're not going to plan your retirement on that. If you can figure out alternatives in the niche selling, the niche market, the niche target is where you go and how you go about and you find it. So understanding this, when you use hybrid publishers, and we'll get into that, you're paying them, whether it's an author house, an iLibris, an Ex Libris, or the like, you pay them. We'll come back to that on their royalties. I'm Judith Briles. You're listening to your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Is there a book in you or another? Author U will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. Author U brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through Author U's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, Author U is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join Author U today through its website at authoru.org. Follow Author U on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at Author U, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. Author U, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
Change the way you publish online. WaveCloud is a new forum for authors to manage all their books' information in one place from start to finish, including pricing and listing summary. To learn more or sign up for email updates, visit wavecloud.com.
picture tells a story. And it's a truism that people do judge a book by its cover. Nick Sellinger and NZ Graphics have been in the business of producing superior graphic cover design and interior layout for self-published authors, independent and traditional publishers for years. He has developed a reputation for excellent work, fast turnarounds, and best of all, affordable pricing. NZ Graphics also produces ebooks and book marketing materials such as posters, sell sheets, postcards, bookmarks, business cards, logos, and more. Books designed for his clients have won multiple book awards, including Best Book Award by U.S. Book News, multiple Evie Awards from the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, Indie Book Awards, the San Francisco Book Festival Award, and Freedom Medal Award from Valley Forge. Visit www.nzgraphics.com or call 303-985-4174 for more details about making your book the success it should be. Mention that you are an FOJ, friend of Judith's, and that you heard about NZ Graphics on your guide to book publishing.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, we left when we were talking about traditional publishing, the royalties that you could expect, and most contracts now are done by net. If you do choose, and this is all about choice. Publishing is about choice today. And there were some very interesting stats that just came out that our Bowker came out with. And our Bowker releases, they're the official creator of the ISBNs, the International Standard Numbers that are used to identify a variety of things, including books. And that of the 500,000 ISBNs that were released last year, and that doesn't mean, by the way, does not mean how many books were published, because a lot of books do not get an ISBN is not included. That's what you'll see on the barcode on the back of the book, which it's the official standard bearer that anybody will know this is a book, this identifies the publisher, this is the kind of, the area that it's in, and they can track down your publishing house. So if it's Simon & Schuster, for example, they have a huge amount of book numbers that they can do variation. I know that when we started our publishing house, we just started with 100. Most people start with less than 10. But with that you have your ISBN, that's your official number. There was 500,000 released. If you just do ebooks and you just publish on Amazon and the Kindle, you don't need an ISBN. That's very clear. But if you decide you want your book on iPad, guess what? You need an ISBN. At least that's where it is right now. And that, and I just think it's smart to officially have that. It just makes you a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit more legit in this game. And then you're coming forward, because I think that if you are going to step into the publishing realm, and if you want to have any chance of getting into a bookstore and having your book carried in that, you better be able to have your book look like, feel like, the appearance like of what would come out of any other type of mainstream publisher. And that means you're going to be spending more money. And it means you absolutely must have an ISBN, and you should, although some don't, you should have a Library of Congress number. The ISBN is going to cost you. The Library of Congress number is a freebie, and you apply for the LCCN after you have your ISBNs, because once you have an ISBN, that book is always going to have it. Now, if you do a revised edition, it gets a new ISBN. If you do a different variation, for example, if you went from hardback to softback, you'd have a two different ISBNs. If you went to mass market, that's another ISBN. If you do an ebook and you do, as I said, you're going to do the iPad, and I think you should have an ISBN for an ebook, that's another one. You see how 4 could go very quickly here. So with that said, you have your official identification. That's one of your costs. And what we're talking about during the show today is about what's the true cost of publishing and what can you expect in receiving in with that. So if you work with a traditional publisher, you're not paying them to publish your book. But I will say this, their expectations is that you, dear author, are going to work your butt off. And you are going to be marketing. In the old days, they did a lot of the marketing for you. That was kind of the package. The package today is you are the package. And so that's why publishers are very interested in the platform. And if you haven't listened to the show that we did on author platforms, I would encourage you to go back into the Rockstar Radio Network and then look at your guide to book publishing and then bring up the show that we did several months ago, or I'm not sure how they look on the laundry list, but it's identified by the tag on author platforms, and pay attention to it because on that show I included Lynn Hellerstein, who created a book called, her first book, she's now into her third, just within the last 2 years, called See It, Say It, Do It. She's had multiple printings. She's been very successful. It's been in books. It's in audio format now. It's got certainly the ebook format. It's spun off 2 other books, and that she has really started to leverage it. And she knows who she is. She knows what her vision is. She's got the passion behind it, and she's creating the marketing platform to really sell a lot of books. And she's building her business quite successfully. It was successful in the first place, but she's really skyrocketed in the process. So traditional publishers pretty much take over the cost of the production, the manufacture of your book. You still have to write it. They actually do expect you to do a first round of editing before you deliver it in. And they expect you really to be the kingpin in the marketing of it. When you go into the different hybrids, which include the pay for publish group, and it could be your print on demand, any of that kind of print on demand is a type of printing, but the PODs get thrown into that, that you are going to basically pay each module as you go along of what it's going to cost you. And my advice would be to you, if you're going to go to a pay-per-publish route, you be very clear when they say we're going to do your book for $397 or $297 or $597 or whatever, the 97 comes into play a lot. Whatever it comes into, that I would advise you not to go into the upsell route. Don't take their marketing package. Don't take their publicity package. You go out and find people. This is really what they do. Why? Because there's such extraordinary turnover in these operations that you may be working with some person this week and they are gone the next week. And I just had a client in from Australia who had told me that he was initially with the biggest pay-to-publish place and that he has kissed off over $7,000 and he has finally just walked away because it was such a disaster. So I would look at that and step away from it, and just if you want to get a book done quickly, you could do this. It's just not going to be the best of the best. Expect a lot of different bodies in the process, and you better stay close attention to every frickin' word that goes in because things get mixed up here. If you really want to go on the El Cheapo, there's always Amazon's Create Space, which is a certainly no frills, temp freight operation, which also is what most of the pay-for-publish people are. They just don't have, Amazon doesn't have the level of upsells. And the plus is that they have Kindle that you'll get slammed into right away, and that would be the plus. Now, moving on to the cost factor, let's just say, the heck with it, I'm going to do it all myself. This is where you really need to pay close attention to what all the numbers are and who they will cost you, who's the player in the process. So Let's start with a cover design. You can spend anywhere from your neighbor doing it for you, which I wouldn't advise unless they professionally do it. You could do it, which I wouldn't advise unless this is what you professionally do. But there's your no-frills cost. You can go on Fiverr, FIVRR.com, and say, hey, I need a cover design. Will anyone do it for $5? And by golly, you're going to have some people who will jump in and say, yeah, they'll do it. But I wouldn't advise this one either. You can go into elance.com and put out some bids if you don't know anyone who does that. And you could put in a budget, and it might be quite interesting, some of the things you come back. But here's the catch here. For cover design, whoever you work with, and especially when you're doing with unknowns, it is imperative that you see samples of their work back and front. And I'm going to get into this because this is the cover of your book says, holy smokes, pick me up. I am fabulous. I am going to solve your problem. I've got the answers. I'm going to give you the solutions to it. I am going to release your pain from the nonfiction. Or from the fiction side, it's going to be, hey, you're going to laugh your tush off. Listen to this. You're reading me. You want this book. That I've got the murder mystery of all murder mysteries. You are going to be romanced to your heart's delight. Or I've got the sci-fi story that will just Ray Bradbury would stood up and cheered. So it's whatever it is that cover says, holy smokes, stop the wagon, I'm getting off, this is for me. That designer better say that. On the back cover, this is your key marketing piece. That's a 7/7 pickup on the front. The back cover flips over. That back cover is going to market. I'm going to solve your problem. It says exactly, you got this problem, Bippy, I'm solving it for you. And they do it very succinctly on that, so you get that. Then you look at that cover designer. So what are they going to pay? It can be from a few bucks if you use one of those sources I mentioned, or you deal with someone, this is what they do for a living, professionally. They are book designers. Highly recommend it. Now, we have another episode we did with Nick Zellinger, who designs interiors as well as exteriors on your Guide to Book Publishing podcast. Listen to that. All right, what do they cost? You could spend thousands. I think you can do it for under 1,000. Be right back. Judith Briles, your guide.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your Guide to Book Publishing with Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
Do you need postcards that make a statement? How about business cards, flyers, brochures, or NCR forms? Two Vets is the solution for all your printing needs. Providing services specially designed for authors, we deliver exceptional quality colored printing. Most important of all, we specialize in reducing your printing costs. No more waiting. No more standing in lines at your local printer. Online proofing. With our pricing tools calculator, you can get instant quotes on all your printing products, as well as shipping rates all over the United States. Just a few clicks of the mouse and you're on the way to discovering how easy and convenient online color printing should be. Contact our friendly, human account representatives. We recognize that you want answers, not voice prompts. Visit our website at www.tu-vets.com or call 1-800 894-8977.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so we were talking about the cover of cost, and I mentioned that you could go for, if you want to go El Cheapo, and it's going to look El Cheapo. And it's not a good idea. And here's what I would do to you. I would go back down. This is when I want you physically to go into a bookstore. Or look, if you've got books, I hope you do, in your house, take them out and start looking at these covers. But the reason why I'd want to go into a bookstore is I want you to see what's the current crop that's coming out. For example, I love the cover of The Hunger Games, one of the hot movies that was popping this spring. That it's really quite elegant. It's very simple. It's dark, which makes sense, but it's not glossy. It's a matte finish on it. It's got an embossing on it. There is a gold foil almost within it, and it's very rich. One of my clients, Brian Gass, he just got his books from the printer. It'll be officially published this fall, and it's called The Business of Wanting More. And Nick Zellinger was the designer of it, and it's beautiful. NZ Graphics, it's beautifully done. It's that velvety matte finish. It's got embossing, and it's got a double layer of embossing on a couple of sections. You would never, ever, 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 ever know that this book was independently published. And it looks like anything that a New York house would come out with. So that's what you're competing with. So you need to find the designers out there who really do develop and design. People like Nick Zellinger at NZ Graphics. There's Joel Friedlander with book designing out in Marin County, who does an excellent job. They're great resources, and they've both done shows with us that you can get more information. Or if you just email me, I'm glad to send you your direct contact at Judith@Briles, BRILES.com, and I will put you in contact. I don't receive anything for it. It's just a good thing to do. All right. So you've got a cost of a cover, and and then you've got cost of editing. And this is where authors shirk all the time. And that what they're doing is that they think, well, my mom read it, my sister read it, my brother read it. Well, are they professional editors? Most likely not. Well, my neighbor read it. Are they a professional editor? Most likely. Well, my friends are reading it. They'll tell me, no, they won't. They love you. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They're going to encourage you. You need someone who will say, for God's sakes, what were you thinking? You need someone to say, we need to slash and burn. I had a client, we were just getting ready to go to print on his book. He came in with 700 pages. It was, oh my God, he's down to 220 by the time we slashed it and burned it, so to speak. It's not that the stuff wasn't interesting, it wasn't relevant. It didn't move it forward. And that's what you have. That's what editors will do. They'll come in and start saying, I don't need this. You've repeated this. How many times do you need to say it this way and that way, etc.? For fiction, you've got to make sure that your characters, I've got one book I'm looking at, the characters don't even stay the same, and I know they're the same the character. So, editing. If it is developmental, conceptual editing, you're going to spend anywhere from $50 to $80 an hour. Okay? If it is ghosting, if you just want to give someone your box of stuff, if it's ghosting, you're going to spend on the low side $25,000. It'll go $50,000. And you're thinking, but wait a minute, I can't afford that. You want someone who this is what they do for a living to take your stuff and turn it all around. You've got to really do that. And it's so imperative to really understand what the costs are. Well, you're thinking, but I wrote this, I wrote it, I wouldn't get that. Well, you're not a professional writer. This is what professional writers make. They could be spending 6 months solid. They could spend a year trying to unravel what you put it together to get it into whatever your vision is for it. They do this for a living. They pay their mortgages and everything else. You're going to pay them either a project fee or they'll charge you by an hour. Best, I'd advise you, is to go in with a project fee because who knows where it's going to go. All right, then you have proofreaders, and proofreaders can charge. We've got proofreaders that we've worked with that after it's all done, this is after the editing, this is where we're going to now go back in and look for the missing periods, the semicolons, the typos. And they get, we've had them range around $400 and $500 for an entire project, and some will go by the hour. Look it up and check it out. Editing, it's a huge expense. It's an imperative expense in it. And then you have your layout design. Well, how complicated is your layout design? Is it just text as in fiction? That's an easy layout design. Or is it something that's going to have a lot of photos or artwork? And by the way, tables are called artwork, and graphics are artwork, and photos, they're all artwork. It's got to be high resolution. Otherwise, it's going to look, don't pull it off the internet, please. And you need to have permissions for all that. Make sure that you've got it all together and it's inserted right. And if you decide to change, well, you know what, I think this photo will look better that I had at the end of the chapter. I think I want to move it up. You're talking about redesign of at least the entire chapter, unless you're doing a sub in or a sub out. Otherwise, your layout person's going to redesign. Layout is not cheap. If someone says, oh yeah, we do layout for $300, you better run. That's where you get into template publishing. And that your paper publishers will use templates. So you get, choice A, B, and C, or chocolate and vanilla, strawberry, and it just drops in and it gets cut wherever it is. And this is where we hear a lot of the complaints with the paper published because there is no control. And if quality and control is important to you, paper published ain't the way to go. You're going to have individual engagements here. So your layout is going to cost, I've seen very small books to go in the $1,000 range, and I've seen very expensive, complicated books get up into the many, many thousands of dollars range. Which is for you? It's up to you and what you do. If you're using call-outs, ways to bring attention, whether you use shading or boxing or some other type of graphic that you drop in, all right, it's a good idea when you're talking to someone who does design and let them know, I have 50 different call-outs sprinkled throughout my chapters. That will help them when they're doing bidding for you. Are you going to have any other art and illustrations? Again, who's going to design it? Where's that coming from? Those costs all come into play with that. And then you have other consultants that come into play. Did you have a book coach? Did you attend a bunch of webinars that you had paid for? Did you go to courses? Did you go to conferences? Those are all costs of developing your book. Know what that is. How about buying a website? Good idea. How about developing your website? Brilliant idea. What about marketing is going to come into play? What about the way you market today is called social media, social media, social media. So is this your cup of tea, or do you need help? All right. How are you going to pay for that? Are you going to bring in a virtual assistant? Is it going to be one domestic in the United States, or are you going to go out of the country? It'll be less out of the country. If you stay in the States, it could, you're going to pay anywhere from $15 an hour to $60 an hour. It's all over the place. What do you want them to do? Are you going to get an intern? Well, this is where you could save some money, but interns, are interns. That means they're not here too long, and a lot of them expect getting a little bit of money. So this is all in your cost per book. Now, here's the big one that now comes along. How are you going to print the book? If you're going to have a book, how are you going to print it? Are you going to print it onesie and twosie, which would be your print-on-demand model? Okay, that's an option. Or are you going to be coming in and work with a book that is 1,000 copies, 2,000 copies, 3,000 copies? Last week we did a show with Mike Daniels on overseas printing. Please listen to it. The sweet spot for overseas is 2,000 copies. But guess what? A lot of times with 2,000 copies, that's what you could get 1,000 for, or close to it domestically. So if time, though, is a crunch, overseas doesn't work. If you need extensive color, overseas is your friend. China does come into play, and it's worthwhile to look it over. Now, there are printers in North America that do a fine job on color. It's just going to be a little bit more expensive. And the other thing is, there is some really interesting stuff coming up with digital printing in color that has really dramatically reduced the cost. And if I would do a comparison, compare ask for samples, show me a book, send me a book that you've done, digital printing in color, and get a book that's been done from your other sources that you're looking at in offset, so I can see and compare it. And you may decide, by golly, the digital works just fine. So there are ways to go, but your printing is going to cost some money. So we come into that, and then you go into that. So you're going to tally all those costs up. All of those costs up, and you're going to find out what the true cost of your book is. Now, when people are trying to figure out a cost of a book, or they're one of the multiples we look at when we try to tie in with our retail pricing to see if we're in the ballpark, is we'll take what our full print run does, and we'll multiply it by, after divided by the books, and we multiply that by the number anywhere from 6 to 8. That 6 to 8 then brings us into an estimated retail price. All right, we'll have more now on the breakdown of our revenues when we come back. I'm Judith Briles, and you're listening to your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Writing and reading are moving to the cloud. WaveCloud represents a whole new community for writers and readers to connect, communicate, evaluate, and share. Writers hone their craft and build their business. Readers build their favorites. Sign up for updates at wavecloud.com.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Alrighty, so we were talking about all these incredible costs that will tally up, and if you're keeping track as we go along here, I talked about cover related, I talked about editing, I talked about layout, I talked about art and illustrations. And art and illustrations, we didn't talk about any dollars and cents, but it's going to vary here. And that if you're having original art done, and if you're going to do, and you want it exclusive, what's going to happen is the designer is going to come back and you're going to end up paying a lot of money for that exclusive. If you talk with them saying, well, you know, I can look and see what you've done and I can use anything like that, they will actually give you the rights to use it. And when you do that, it's like with photos and lyrics that you might want to use. They always want to know, well, what are you using it for? Well, I'm going to be doing a book. And how many copies are you going to be printing that will use that? And they actually will do some adjustments with that. I know that in John Mailing, for example, one of our clients did a book called Have You Ever Held a Mountain? It's a gift book. It's like a tiny coffee table book. It's got a gorgeous vellum cover with foil embossed on the cover, and then 4-color pictures throughout, and then there's a poem that is riddled and woven through it. And it's won lots of awards. Well, the cost of the printing, we couldn't do here in North America, and we went overseas, and that the cost of the book printing was reduced by 60%, significant for what we did. And the cost for photo, I remember the author saying he went through 6,000 photos before he identified the 70 plus that were used in the book. But the cost for all those photos ran into about $50 per photo. So it adds up. Now, you can look at iStock, you can look at iPhoto, you can do at various places that will resell, and certainly do that. It's just that John wanted one artist that he knew of and the work, and he wanted it consistent throughout, and that was the choice he went. But any photos, any artwork is going to cost you money, and it could range. It could range from a few bucks, $5, here we go, $5 again, to a custom job. What's that? All right, then you're printing. What's it? How many are you going to print? Is it 500 a short run? 100 a short run? Is it less than 1,000? Anything under that is called a short run. And is it going to go into multiples? What's the full cost in there? What about shipping these books to you? All right, those books have got to get to your warehouse or your garage or the distributor. What's that cost? What's that cost? All right, any consultants, those conferences we talked about, what's that cost? What about the development of a website? And make sure that your book is featured prominently on that, preferably on the right side of the website, upper section, with a Buy Me button or get them to Amazon or something. And then what other, what's going to come in with the marketing? So what's all that tally up to? Now, let's go over and sell the book. And we've got revenues that need to come in. And if we did, and let's use, I'm just going to give you a $25 price. All right. And it gets adjusted before, and I can give you a quick 15 as well. But let's say it's $20. $25. If you sold it traditionally, and let's say you sold 5,000 copies, that what you are going to make on a hardback book, if they paid $25, and it's going to be a net amount of royalties, that's going to come in to under $5,000. All right, if you sold it to decided, you know what, I'm not going to sell it traditionally, I'm going to sell it myself. But I do want to get in bookstores, so I'm going to have a wholesale relationship. I'm going to have some distributor in play. Typically, they will take a 55% discount from your retail price, 55%. So 45% comes to you, and that means roughly for a $25 book, $11.25. All right. So if we have costs in, and I'm going to put in these different costs. Let's say our cover cost was around $1,000. Let's just pretend. Go with me here. $1,000. Let's say my layout and editing came in at around $5,000. Let's say if I'm selling 5,000 copies, I'm going to print 5,000 copies. Well, that's going to come down to around $2.25, $2.30, possibly. A book, and it could be less. You never know. But these are the bids I got from one of the printers that we typically use. They gave a $232 for 5,000. That means $11,600, and it's going to cost roughly $1,000 to get it back to me. I am looking at cost of around $18,500. Well, if I sold all 5,000 of those books, netting $11.25 to me, I've got revenues coming in of around $56,000. So my net in my pocket is $37,000. All right. Those are the hard costs. And I gave you the hard costs, the cover, the layout, the editing. I don't have illustrations in here. And I've got printing. When you start adding in consultants, when you start adding in workshops that you go to learn about this thing called the publishing business, when you start adding in those kind of things, it's going to, and of course, marketing costs, it will increase your costs. Understand the costs. Now, if I looked at doing it with a $15 book, I'm going to have costs that are going to be less in what? Printing. All the other stuff, cover design, editing, layout, that's all going to be basically the same, but my printing will be at least in half. And if I sell 5,000 of that, that means my printing is going to drop from that $11,600 down to well under $7,000. It's going to be around $6,000. And so, because I'm only selling 5,000 of a $15 book, that means I get $675 in my pocket. That means my revenues for all this are around $33,700 from the get-go. My profit will drop to $20,000. So that's the difference. Now, what if you figured out a way to niche market and basically you're able to sell almost at full retail? My favorite way, and I will tell you, that's how I did most of it myself. And in my area. Now, do I have relationships today with bookstores? Absolutely. Are my books available through bookstores? Yeah, they are. And do they carry them so they're always on the shelf? No, but they can go to distributors and get them in 24 hours. And that's at least the relationship that you want to have. So if you do it yourself and you can figure out how you can move a $25 book or a $15 book or a $20 book so it's a net sale to you. Going back to my $5,000 number, if I can sell 5,000 at $15, that's $75,000 gross to me versus if I did it through a distributor, I would have gotten 20,000. All right, or my profit would have been 20 in that area. So if I go into the $15 book and I sell it, my costs are revenues are 75. My costs are just under 14,000. I'm going to net slightly over $61,000. If I sold it through a wholesaler distributor via the bookstore chain of events, my profit would be roughly $20,000. And if I did it through a bookstore, through a traditional publisher, I probably am truly in the hole if I paid for outside editing at all, or anyone to help me in the process. I'm in the hole. Now, let me jump to my $25 scenario. In my $25 scenario, if I sell 5,000 books at $25 each, that's a whopping $125,000. My cost are going to be a little higher because I was using a hardback cover, so you're going to have a little bit more cost with that. If it's paper, my costs are still going to be around $12,000 or $14,000. So if I have a hardback or a $25 book, forget the hardback. Let's just say I sold my book for $25. There's plenty of paperbacks selling at that. That's $125,000 in revenues. My costs are going to come in around $14,000. That means I've got about $111,000 profit, much bigger than if I had sold it with a traditional publisher and walked away with around $5,600 in my pocket. And if I had sold it through the bookstore operation, where I would have made around $37,000. So it's understanding the numbers. The numbers speak. It's understanding the stats of what it's going. Know what creating your book costs, always, from the get-go. And then you can figure out what are my channels of where I'm going to sell it. Who is your customer? Where are they hanging out? How do I get to those people? How do I let them know about me? Social media, the platforms, whether it's Pinterest, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's creating a killer blog, they will find you. But you have to create the work to do it. You have to be consistent. You have to be committed. And you have to have it really complete when you go out with your package. So that's why that cover is imperative. That's why you have to have your copy to bring it together. And that's how you can be successful. But it starts with knowing the numbers so you know what your investment of your time, of your energy, of your own money into this project. And no matter which way you go, you will be investing money and you're going to invest yourself. I'm Judith Briles. We'll see you next time on your guide to book publishing.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles.